Now, in part B, we just finished completing the conversation around how to ensure that you incorporate information around paraphrasing, when to quote, and when to avoid plagiarism. But how about the way you can actually ensure that you are giving credit to the right authors? Well, I see there are two different areas called MLA or APA. The preference is APA for my class, and the way you do it, you have an author's name, date of publication, and the page number placed right near the reference that you're referring to. And so this is how it would look in an actual article. And so this is the preferred mechanisms that I like to use in my reports for my classes. Now let's go into discussing how to make sure that the graphics look great. First of all, when you're creating meaningful graphics and you're creating a way to clarify your messages, think about what you're doing. Certainly you want to clarify the data points, which is number one. You want to create some sort of visual interest so it looks great. You want to condense and try to simplify the information. People like seeing charts and graphs a lot easier than they do a lot of text. So it's important that you have your information to be condensed so it's easy to read, but also still communicates the information you want to discuss. So you'll do that by a number of areas. You'll do that by incorporating tables. Tables are actually a very great way to incorporate information. You place tables in the documents. You arrange things in logical order, alphabetical or chronological. You also place clear headings there in those tables. In addition to tables that are, lots of information, and tables makes it very easy to read. So you want to place tables as close to the information or points you're discussing as possible. In addition, you want to consider bar charts. Bar charts allow you to do some similar functions, but you can also incorporate a little more visualization, but you can't show as much information as you could in a table. Line charts demonstrate information that change over time. You see these on television all the time, and you really get a chance to understand where graphs are going based on the line chart. Pie chart has a number of visualization opportunities as well, which are very similar to line charts. You have these things such as flow charts. I love flow charts. Flow charts help to keep the information simplified. So in flow charts, you see basically an oval, which designates that that's the beginning of a process. And then you'll see diamonds, which actually it says that's a designated decision point. And then finally, you typically see rectangles. That helps to showcase where major steps or activities are held. So we move on here to organizational charts to help define a hierarchy of the elements. Lastly, there are photographs, maps, and illustration. All of this does is actually shows you information and communicate exactly how things should look in a very organized and I guess a really nice formal approach to delivering your information. So that's why you would use visual aids and graphics. Now let's get down to the way you want to develop a formal report. And so in your booklet, it actually talks about front matter components, page 309. And the reason you do this is because people want to see, or business organizations and individuals, professionals, want to see the information looks visually appealing. So you want to choose a professional binding. What that means is that you may want a spiral bind or a cone bind or any type of way that you can keep the document bounded together to look very professional. You also want to do a number of these things here. Have these elements available. The name of the report in all caps. Who's going to receive the report? What is your name? And when you actually submit the report are all critical information to communicate in a title page or a cover page. The letter or memo of transmission. That does a lot for an organization. It actually helps to center the information and know exactly why you presented this information. It announces the topic and explains who authorized it, briefly describes the project, highlights the finding and conclusion, and it basically closes with an appreciation or a follow-up. When I write proposals and information regarding formal proposals like this, you always want to either end with what you want them to agree to or to do next. Then you have table of contents. Shows the page numbers where each information can begin in the text. It basically carries you throughout the presentation. List of illustration. That also provides you information that is very detailed to show exactly where information should be in the actual document. And then you have this trusty little item called the executive summary. The executive summary is basically a high-level summary of exactly what your report covers and why it's important for someone to review your information. So the letter or memo of transmittal. It announces the topic and explains who authorized it. It briefly describes the project. It basically highlights a number of factors and basically tells the person why this information is being developed or presented to them. You close with an appreciation or some sort of follow-up action, and basically that communicates exactly why you're presenting this report, a letter or memo of transmittal. So in the frontal report, in the introduction, you have an opportunity to really describe events leading to the problem or the need, explain the report topic and why it's important. You want to consider the significance of why this report is being developed, determine the scope and the boundaries, look at the roadmap or the structure of the report as well, identify who commissioned the report, who gave you the authority to do it, determine any literature review that you may have, sources and methods, and of course key terms that may be important for those who are reading it to fully understand your report. Now the next slide goes into the body. Present your research findings or solution to the initial problem. You want to use clear and descriptive headings. Headings really help to carry your proposal through so people can follow what you're trying to communicate. It's a very important piece, and there are two types of headings. Headings can be typical as functional or talking. Basically, a functional heading is basically something very simplistic, analysis of our finding, or it can be considered as talking heading, and that actually provides you information, a lot more details. For example, it may talk about employment benefits or finding reveal revenue. And so it gives you more description as it relates to what the report is all about. And that is a good opportunity for someone to really explain why you're reading this report even more in detail. Then conclusion. You draw a conclusion based on your overall findings. So some additional recommendations as it relates to your report could be conclusions and recommendation. All of this goes together in those last two slides. The appendix covers a number of information such as reports and charts and graphs that may not necessarily be in the report itself but need to be included in the overall document. So appendixes are very important as you're developing a large-scale report, either a proposal or a formal report. Works cited, we've already discussed that component. So here are some writing tips. You want to allow time to write. I know most of us say, hey, let me just get it done. I need to get a grade for it and move on. Well, it takes time to write a really consistent and concise report that provides all these different components in a very organized way. So allow yourself extra time to do that. Finish collecting the data before you begin to write. You need to understand what you're writing about before you dive in and simply do the work. Work from an outline. Outlines work very well so you can have an idea where you're going with your information. Provide a good writing environment. You know, we're all working from home now, so sometimes it's not as easy to work from home as people think it is, but it does provide you an opportunity for you to get your environment ready, prepare for this work that you have to get done, and move forward. Use your computer features wisely, and be sure to write your information, but also revise your information. Continue to write and revise, and that way you can have a really good report moving forward. Save difficult sections until you fully gain confidence. Now this can be very challenging because there are certain sections that are just hard to write. So you may want to take the time to do so. When you're writing a report, it is not a personalized report. It is not based on you or me. It's more so a third-party report, and you're going to write it so. The writers who write often always say write a copy of the information and then let it sit for a while and come back to it. If you have time to do that, great. You sometimes come back with a more clarified version of what you're trying to communicate. Revise for clarity, coherence, and conciseness. Really great information as you're looking to how do you make sure your report looks great. Finally, proofread and finalize a copy 3 times because the final copy always will find 1 or 2 things you thought, oh, I thought I caught that. So proofread the final copy 3 times or more. And that's the end of our session 4, Chapter 10, Part B.